Hello, Grats and Gits. Welcome back to Happy Corrupted Wargaming. I am thrilled to share a very exciting message with you. Our boys were on life support for a really long time, but we just saw a hint of independent breathing. Are the Custodes back, alive, and well? Did GW do enough in the balanced data slate? Well, that is what today's video is all about. Can we start enjoying the Golden Wall once again? Let's find out today. Guys, if you really enjoy the content, make sure you check out the Happy Corrupted Discord where we're going through tactics and builds, and we're going through strategy every single freaking day. We're staying on top of the meta, and we're making sure that everyone knows exactly how to build, how to play, exactly how to go into the individual missions, all the updates. Jump on into the member section. And to all my supporters out there who are helping me make this thing go around, you guys are total freaking rock stars. I cannot tell you how much your support means. How did we fare in the balanced data slate? Well, there's a couple things for us to talk about. First off, let's talk about some of the general changes to the game that have occurred since last week, and kind of with the release of Pariah Nexus as well. But as most of you have know by now, we effectively just got the release of like edition 10.5. Like there was massive rules changes all last week, and some of you in the comments were a little cruel last week, saying I got the pivot thing incorrect. You were all wrong. I was correct on the pivot thing. It's been confirmed by GW. If you're on a circular base, when you're doing the charge, you're now allowed to rotate and then complete your charge move. So vehicles that have holes that overhang their bases now as long as it's a round base, to be clear, now absolutely can get like a 7-inch deep strike charge. Just to be clear. I'm correct about that one. Anyway, love you all and I appreciate the conversation. But let's get into some of the balanced things that have happened for Custodes specifically. General rules that have dramatically affected us. Dev wounds are just mortals, and they do not spill over anymore. This is the way that GW should have fixed it originally, but I understand it was kind of a tricky thing to balance, but they solved it, and they did a freaking awesome job. Super proud of the GW. They crushed it on the dev wounds change. So now dev wounds are no longer, you just can't take a save. Dev wounds are back to their original incarnation, where a devastating wound is a mortal wound. However, there is a caveat specific to the dev wounds, which is it cannot spill over. So the mortal wound protection that we get from Talons of the Emperor absolutely provides protection against dev wounds, which that change by itself dramatically improves the ability of Talons of the Emperor to be playing. So now we actually have quite a relatively good singles paradigm to actually start playing in, and that is a freaking huge buff to Custodes, and I love it, and it really helps us play the game a ton. So now we can start building a little more Custodes content and helping push things out there. Now, the second big change that was a really big deal actually was the captain style stratagems, whether it was a shield captain or a captain in Space Marines or whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. You get to use the stratagem even if another unit has already done it for free. That whole thing, it's really, really different now. So it's no longer battle tactic locked. So we're no longer stuck with just like the one or two battle tactics in our detachment. We can now use our ability to make any stratagem cost one less. It's no longer free, but it is just -1. And a lot of our stratagems cost 1 CP, which is a really big deal. So this gives us a lot more flexibility in the way that we're going to be spamming and utilizing our stratagems. Now, there is a caveat to that. One of the things that happens is that you can no longer double up on stratagems, which really isn't the biggest deal in my opinion. I think the only stratagem that really would have been affected super bad by that was like the fallback are in charge stratagems, or the so say +1 strength, +1 AP stratagem from Talons of the Emperor. There's probably a few others out there, but you can no longer double up on stratagems unless the rule specifically calls out saying that you are. So for example, our venatari, who have the ability to for free rapid ingress, can still do that even if another unit has also rapid ingress. So you can still do the triple venatari rapid ingress trick, which is sick, because as that might be a little foreshadowing, venatari got good. So that was another huge win for us. We got a lot of wins in the balanced data slate. We did get one what I would consider is tough for us, right? So Vect abilities are no longer affecting a specific strat. So let's say that we're trying to use a stratagem and we have a battle tactic and we want to, I don't know, reactive move in Talons. Well, our opponent might use one of their Vect abilities to say, aha, for the rest of the game, your tactic will now cost 1 CP more. It does not work like that. Instead, all Vect style abilities in the entire game work differently. Instead, they're all removed from the game and they've all been replaced by a new rule called, I think it's Reign of Chaos, which is going to be a 12-inch aura from that model Where any enemy unit uses a stratagem within that 12-inch aura, it will cost an extra CP. This is game changing. Now, I don't necessarily think it's the biggest deal for Custodes, but it does hurt a little bit because most of the units that have this this new Vex style ability are pretty squishy and they don't want to be anywhere near combat. So it's going to be generally something that's not going to affect Custodes very much. So it's a little bit of a win, but certain ones, like I'm thinking the Swarm Lord, for example, now the Swarm Lord is going to be giving out a 12-inch aura of double the cost of your CP of your stratagems effectively, or plus one of the cost of your stratagems effectively. And that is actually going to be a very, very big deal for Custodes and a lot of other armies too. So I'm not saying it's like Custodes specific, but that change did hurt a little bit, not a ton. So it's not that big deal. Let's get into some of the point specific changes because there were a lot of them and that was pretty cool. So, here are the changes that are specific to Custodes and not just the game in general. First off, Auric Champions got a keyword update. So effectively what happens now is that previously the detachment rule of +1 to wound against like your monster vehicle character unit would only apply to character models, which was brutal, and it made the Auric Champions detachment just really, really bad. Now, the Auric Champions detachment is still pretty bad, but they did get a nice boost where now your abilities to choose the target that you're going to be +1 to wound will work on all character units. So it'll work on all the models in the unit that's led by a character, which does actually help that detachment quite a bit. I really don't think it's enough to make that detachment competitive or honestly even that fun to play, but it definitely is a big improvement. And I think it's a good thing that GW is doing. They're doing small incremental improvements, and it's a good way to handle the game. So it's going to make it so that detachment is playable. I still probably won't be running it, but it is playable now. So that's nice. Then Shield Host got an army rule update. And let me tell you, this one is spicy and it is hot. So now in Shield Host, instead of once per game, you get the golden wall where your whole army is +1 AP and gets crits on 5s in melee. They changed it. So at the start of every battle round, you, my friend, are going to choose whether your army has +1 AP in melee or if your army has crits on 5s. This is strong. It means that Shield Host hits like a freaking truck and is now officially one of the hardest hitting armies in the game. I don't know if it's going to fix all the problems that Shield Host has, but it is a dramatic change to the way Shield Host plays, and I'm really excited to start putting those things on board. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to be doing a live stream this weekend running the Shield Host to see how we can actually make them run, so tune into that if you're interested. Then we got some useless point drops on some models, and then we got a insanely good points drops. So let's go through some of those points drops, and I'm going to see how this like kind of affects the way that our army is actually going to operate. So these are useless point drops. Now, all right, I understand that's a little like hyperbolic. They're not actually useless point drops, but this is YouTube. I'm supposed to be hyperbolic. I need to get the clicks, baby. So the first points drop came for the Agmatis Custodians. These are like the Forge World bikers, and they dropped by 15 points. The reality is that this drop is actually useless because there's still no point in running the unit. They have 0 synergy in their abilities. First of all, their weapons kind of suck. I mean, they're still a custodian weapon. So in melee, they still have the 5 attack, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2, which is what it is. But I think the entire unit is now like 230 points. Let me check on that for you real quick, so I'm not telling any fibs. So for 3 models, it's 225 points. They're just still bad, man. They hit just like a normal custodian. They do move a little bit faster, but they're mounted, so they can't move through walls. Their gun is pretty poor. There they can take the Adrathic Devastator for 1 attack, strength 7, AP 2, damage 3 at 18-inch range. They can take a Lastrum Bolt Cannon, which you'll never take, or they can take a Twin Las Pulsar, which is a 24-inch range, 2 shots, strength 9, which is cool, AP 1, which sucks, and damage 2. It's just not that good. And then when you combine that with the fact that their ability, which is each time they make an advance, they just automatically move 6 inches, it doesn't stack with any of their guns or weapons. It just makes them not good. So I just don't like them. They suck. I think the only way you're going to fix them, you're not going to fix these things with points. You're going to fix these things with synergies. You're going to give them the ability to advance and charge, or the advance and shoot. You're going to give them like assault on their weapons. You need to do different things than points to make this unit work. I don't know if GW actually wants to make this point work, because sometimes they're Forge World units they don't care about, but not always, as we're about to see. And then we have 15 points drop on the price of Aquilon Terminators. Now, this is actually pretty cool. The problem is that Aquilons are still just too darn expensive. When they dropped by 15 points, but they're still, what are they at? 195 for 3 or 390 for 6, it's still too many points because they still just don't stack up to their brothers, the Alaris, who are just better in general. The Aquilon do have some cute things, like their melee attack. It has 1 extra strength, and they can get access to the Flamers, but the Flamers are pretty good. The Flamers are strength 6, AP 1, damage 1. But it's only 12-inch range, and they get reroll wound rolls against the closest enemy. Now, I do think there's a place for Aquilons, but they're going to have to come down probably another significant amount of points before I'm going to start taking Aquilons over the Alaris. So I think Aquilons are going to be an okay place with just a few more points drops. So I don't think GW missed on this one. I think that points are the correct way to balance Aquilon. It's just they didn't quite go far enough, and that's okay because that's something they can update in a future balance stat slate. Then lastly, we have the Telemon. I think the Telemon is going to severely just be suffering from the fact that its data sheet just isn't good. You're looking at a 20-point drop on the Telemon, which sounds great on face value, but the problem is that the Telemon is still a pretty pricey boy at 215 points. So he still costs more points than a Redemptor Dreadnought, and he's nowhere near as good as a Redemptor Dreadnought. He does move 8, which is a little bit faster than some of the other Dreadnoughts in Custodes, which are unusable at a move of 6. But the problem is all of his weapons are just bad for his points cost. He does have a cool ability where he is the -1 damage. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate that. I like it. I think it is cool. I think it is great. And it's a good place to start, but it just doesn't really push through. Because when we look at all of the weapons, his melee is 5 attacks. It's going to be at strength 12, AP 2, damage 3. So it's effectively the same weapon as a Redemptor. He just hits on weapon skill 2. But then when you look at his guns, man, they just don't cut it, man. So he's going to have a Spiculous Bolt Launcher, which is D6 plus 3 shots blast, strength 5, AP 0, damage 1, which is okay. That's fine. It's not a bad like secondary kind of gun to put out there. Maybe you can do a little bit of something. Not something that Custodes need, because Custodes don't need help killing chaff. But then his other gun is either the Arachnid Storm Cannon, which is admittedly 12 shots, strength 6, AP 1, damage 1, with dev wounds. You know, if it had twin linked, I could see it, but it doesn't have twin linked, which means it's just not good. Once again, it's only doing that AP 1 at range, which Custodes don't need help with that. We've got tons of good AP 1 shooting at range. Or you can give them the Iliastus Accelerator Culverin, which is 4 attacks, builds at skill 2, strength 9, which is getting pretty cool, AP 1, damage 3. We don't need more AP 1 at range. So in all reality, this guy, he needs just different weapons options. He needs a different gun. He needs a better gun. They need to change the profiles on the guns. If they do that, I would be super happy to put the Telemon on the table. It's just not a points thing for me at this point. It's just not a points thing. The -1 damage is cool. It's cute, but all of his guns just kind of suck. I don't think you're going to fix it with the points, but that's okay, because now we're getting into some things that we are really excited about. So we have interesting point drops here. One interesting. Now, I don't think I'm going to take the Palace, but I can definitely see how the Palace Grav Tank might be fitting into some other army slots. The Palace dropped 15 points, and it is now 105 points. Now we are starting to talk about some stuff. We have a 2-up armor save on this thing. He moves 12. He's got a relatively bad gun, but it does have the twin linked keyword, and it's going to give you access to those sweet, sweet dev wounds, which is pretty dang sick. So I do like that action. And he is a little bit durable for his points cost. So that is pretty dang cool. Now, it is a little bit weird that his gun is twin linked, which means that he rerolls wound rolls with it. And then his ability is that if you're shooting something that's below half strength, you're adding 1 to the wound roll. But he already has the twin linked, and you're already fishing for devs. So like his ability just doesn't stack with his gun. I think he needs a new ability or a new gun. Once you do that, I think the Palace gets more interesting, but the points drop is actually cool, and I think we can start seeing this slotted into some armies. Then we're going to be talking about our Guard with Adricite or Pyrothite or the Melta Spears. Now, this is actually a very significant points drop. Once again, I just don't think that points are the way to fix these guys, although this was actually a really big step to it. So these guys dropped from 300 points all the way down to 250 points. That is a massive points drop on a squad of 5 guys. And it was very, very necessary. They're getting into a range where I can see some people might be considering them. I'm not going to consider them yet, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it's not really a points issue for me. It's actually, once again, it's a weapon issue. So they can take either the Adricite Spear, which is 1 attack, strength 5, AP 2, damage 3. We're actually talking about something that's a little bit different in the army at that point, because it's giving you some flat 3 damage at range with a little bit more AP. Okay, I can accept that. It's only a range of 18. It's only 1 shot. It's not worth the huge points increase that you're going off of from just taking a normal guard. And then the Pyrothite Spear is the other option you can equip them with. And this is a Melta Gun. And having a Melta Gun is awesome in this army because we want those. The problem is it's a 12-inch meltagun. We're running into that same scenario where it's just like, it's not worth it to take a 12-inch meltagun because I'd much rather have a, say, advanced and charging Warden blob. And it doesn't even have like the assault keywords. So you can't run a blade champion with them to give them the advance and shoot and charge ability, right? Like, it's the wrong gun. Make it assault, maybe I can talk. Make it a 24-inch range melta, I can talk. But I think that's how you're going to need to really, really fix these dudes. But once again, I don't think this is a useless points drop. I think this was an interesting one. But now let's get into the just straight up, this points drop rocks, and it's going to define metas. This is insane and amazing. Our venatari went down like by 35 points. So now we're looking at 165 for a 3-man squad or 330 for a 6-man squad. Now, venatari were already quite good. If you remember the dark days when we had no dev wound protection, before the Codex was released, this is the only way I was able to really run Custodes successfully during that time period. And it was pretty darn cool because what we would do is we would be running like triple or quadruple rapid ingresses. And these guys were rock stars. You would have a 6-man squad, maybe 2 3-man squads. It was something that your opponent really, they can't screen 3 or 4 rapid ingresses in the same turn. And venatari, because of the ability on their data sheet, they get to rapid ingress for free, even if another unit has already rapid ingress, and it's called out specifically on their data sheet, so they do keep the ability. That doesn't mean it's not subject to potential FAQ in the future, but for right now, it 100% works, which is awesome. So I love these dudes, and these guys absolutely define the way that Custodes can now play. So dropping this amount of points means that we can fit in that extra squad. It means that we can fit in that extra unit of whatever that we really needed. And it means that we're not sacrificing on punching potential. And then when you talk about this changes to shield host, holy crap. Let me talk about how these guys do. You get a 6-man squad of these rapid ingressing. Then they're going to move 10, and then they're going to shoot, and then they're going to charge whatever they need to charge. These guys are going to have 30 attacks, critting on 5s, strength 7, lance, so it's +1 to wound, AP 2, damage 2. Wow, guys. That's going to be something, I think the math turns out to, it's going to be, if you're going, say, sustained hits, you're going to average, 35 to 40, I think it's like 37 hits with strength 7 at +1 to wound. It basically means that this is going to mince any infantry or any heavy infantry unit in the game instantaneously. And then if you know that you're going into a unit that's going to be like having an armor contempt, or they get like that 2-up armor save, you don't have to take the crits on 5s. You just choose the +1 AP for that round, which is absolutely nasty, brutal. You're going into a vehicle? No problem. Let's crit on 5s, and we're going to give ourselves lethals. It is shocking how much damage these guys put out in that new shield host detachment for the cost that they have. A 6-man will always pick up a 6-man brick of, say, Exalted A-Bound. A 6-man will pick up Angron. A 3-man will pick up a 3-man squad of Exalted A-Bound. Just to give you some comparisons for the amount of damage output they do. They are bananas, and they're awesome, and it's a huge, huge buff to Custodes. So overall, I'm going to give this balanced data slate a B for the Custodes. We got some really big, interesting things that we can do now. It doesn't fix all the problems that Custodes had, but we definitely have a very strong singles list in the realm of Talons of the Emperor, and we have an amazing teams list in the realm of Shield Hosts. Now, Shield Hosts can also be played in singles, of course, no doubt about it, but it is going to be a little bit more limited because their protection against mortals is going to be reliant on the 1 CP stratagem, which if you know the way that mortals are put out in this game, you're probably not going to be using a stratagem to protect yourself from mortals unless you're just being focus fired by a bunch of dev wounds, right? And the reason why I say that is because most of the time when mortals are doled out in this game, they're going to be doled out 1 to 3 at a time. So I'm going to throw grenades at you. Are you really going to spend a CP to give yourself a 4-up Feel No Pain against grenades? Probably not. Or the wraiths moved over you and they caused, 3 or 4 mortal wounds. Are you going to spend a CP just because the wraiths moves over you? Probably not. It's going to be a great way to burn through CP. So that stratagem is only really effective when you know you're getting focus fired down by dev wounds, which is great. Don't get me wrong, especially considering with the change with dev wounds and everything. But I don't think they have quite the power in singles as Talons will, but I do think they have got an amazing place in teams, and they can totally still play in singles. So I'm not saying you can't play. So I've got a few sample army lists here that I wanted to share with you guys so that you can get crumping as quickly as possible. So here is the Talons. I'm going to start with 1 Blade Champion. I'm going to give us 1 Shield Captain in Terminator armor, and I'm going to give us Valerian. I still love Valerian, guys. Him giving you AOC and melee just makes that 1 unit of Custodians, of Wardens, unchargeable, because they're going to take 0 damage, and then they're going to slaughter you back. Then the Blade Champ, he gives you a little bit more reach with the other squad of Wardens, which can then activate their, once per game Feel No Pain when they need to. It's still a great build. I like it a lot. I personally always run the Shield Captain Alaris with a 5-man of Alaris Custodians because I think those are the best units in the army. The flexibility to be able to shoot wherever you need them, teleport, be down, shoot, obliterate something, especially in Talons where you can get the +1 strength and the +1 AP. And then you get to charge in, slaughter whatever you need to slaughter. They function very independently from the rest of the army because they have their reroll wound rolls against any character, monster, or vehicle unit. And that is 80% of the units in the game. So they function very, very independently, and I absolutely love them. I'm going to have 4 squads of prosecutors. These girls are going to be running around, and they're going to be providing that aura of Feel No Pain to us. Now, you can add in more. You can potentially even put like a Psychona Rhino in here. So that's a way that you can shift this list up. I found I haven't really needed it because it's, especially with a change to indirect fire, you don't really have to worry about indirect killing your Sisters of Silence anymore. So I'm starting with like just these 3 units of 4 prosecutors. I think that's enough. If it's not enough, then I can change that up in the future. I'm going to bring 1 squad of these 3 Venatari because holy crap, just having that 3-man that's going to be rapidly ingressing and going and obliterating that one annoying unit that's hanging out behind the ruins that you just couldn't get to any other way is such a powerful ability. I'm still going to keep the double Caladius in my Talons list for right now, even though you guys know I don't like Caladius. I do think they're still necessary for the way for where Custodes basically are. You won't see them in the Shield Host list, but you're going to see them in Talons still. And then lastly, I'm keeping that Calidus Assassin for right now. I do believe that her ability just to jump up and down and score all of your secondaries more or less is critical to the way that the Talons are going to function. So I'm going to keep the Calidus for right now. Also, her ability is pretty good. So think of it like this. You can deep strike her into an area where you know your opponent's going to want to Overwatch. Guess what? That Overwatch now costs 2 CP. It doesn't cost 1. That is freaking powerful because of the way that abilities have changed. It's now just a 12-inch aura of it's going to cost you more CP to use stratagems. So I do like the Calidus still with Talons. And then let's move on over to the Shield Host example I have for you. And this is just a starting point, guys. You can change these up however you want. I'm going to take a Blade Champion. I'm going to take a Shield Captain in Alaris Terminator armor. And I'm going to give him that Panopta specs because that's going to give him the Ignore cover. And the Alaris Brick, when they're shooting at you and they have AP1 with Ignore cover, is a world of difference than when they're shooting at you with AP1 and not ignoring cover. Suddenly, they can start killing things, which is so freaking awesome. It's just absolutely incredible. So I always want him. It's only 5 points. You're giving him the pen-up specs. I'm going to keep Valerian. I'm going to keep the 2 squads of Wardens. That'll stay the same. I'm going to keep the 5-man of Alaris Custodians as well. Here come the changes. I'm only going to run 1 squad of 4 prosecutors. They're just there to do actions and to hold a home field. And then I'm going to run a 6-man Venatari. I'm going to run 2 3-mans Venatari. And I'm going to run double Witch Seekers. As you can see, I have no long-range support in this army. This army does one thing, and it murders people's faces off. And when I have all those Venatari, they're going to be all rapidly ingressing at the same time. Your opponent will not be able to screen that much. It will be too much for a lot of armies to handle. Of course, it does have some weaknesses as well. It is a skew that will require piloting it a little bit correctly. This is awesome. I like it a lot. I encourage you to give it a try. Now, this is a little bit of a higher skill army. Not saying that it's, Talons are not high skill or whatever, but it's going to take you some reps to get used to this style of play. This style of play murders everything. It's actually super, super fun. So I encourage you to give it a whirl. And then lastly, I gave you one fun list, which is probably not actually that great, but I did play it and it did slap face. This is pure murder. Shield Host, pure murder mode. We're going to run that Shield Captain. We're going to run Valerian, a 5-man of Lars, a 4-man of Wardens, a 6-man of Venatari, a 3-man, double Witch Seeker, and then Canis Rex, who might have just become the best model in the game. And I honestly struggle to think of a single army that wouldn't like having Canis Rex in them. Now that he can move through walls, and he just moves through the walls because that's what big knights do now. Amazing. Astonishingly amazing. Yeah, it's just so darn good. Now, some people are making the argument that Canis Rex can only move through walls in Imperial Knights, and they lose that ability when they're taken as allies. I completely disagree with that. The rule that allows Imperial Knights to be moving through walls is in the new balanced data slate. And it is a army rule, right? So it's the same thing as like what the Chaos Knights got, right? And when you look at the way it's worded, it can move within... it's part of the super heavy walker ability. That super heavy walker ability follows them around. It is an army rule. They keep that when they go into other detachments. Some people say you don't keep army rules, but the free blade, which is the thing that lets you take them in other army detachments, is an army detachment rule. So it's like, if you're saying that you can't take free blades, okay, cool. His ability doesn't work in other detachments, but I don't think anyone's making that claim. So it pretty much just works in other detachments. So I like it. This list is a total blast. It will just absolutely curb stomp some people. It's got some blaring weaknesses. So I'm not saying this is the best, but this is a really fun one. I do think that it's worth your time to try out both the Talons and the other shield host list. Let me show you those one more time. I got these posted up right here. You guys can take screenshots or whatever. Give them a little bit of a try. You're probably going to see me running these on a live stream, maybe Friday night. I'm excited to get back into Custodes Codex because, boys, Custodes are playable again. I'm not saying they're the best army in the game right now, but I am happy with the changes. I think Games Workshop did a good first run. I think there's a few other things they need to fix, like the internal balance of the Codex is just awful, and so they need to do some work on that. But overall, I think they've done a really good first step, and I'm really excited to start putting these bad boys on the table again. Grots and gits, ladies and gents, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and share it with your friends. We've got more Custodes content coming out. We've got more Orcs content coming out. We got more Blood Angels and World Eaters. We got all the melee goodness coming out, and I'm excited to be sharing it all with you. If you want more of this action, you should hop into the Discord. And if you're looking for individual coaching plans where we can get you up to speed and maybe winning your majors or your other GTs that you're looking at, you can find more information about the coaching services down in my link below, in the description below. It's at Coffee. So it's my Coffee link, and you just click on that. You can find other things. You can join the Discord either by becoming a YouTube member or supporting on Coffee as well. Either way, you'll get your role and you'll get access to all the goodies inside the Discord, where we are hosting our own private teams tournament right now because we do lots of things like that for our members because I love and appreciate all of you. Anyway, until next time, this has been Happy Crump and Wargaming. Bye-bye.